This week in a conversation, I have the privilege to welcome out of London, movie producer, impeccable producer, Nathalia Syam. She's just produced a wonderful, critically acclaimed feature film titled Footprints on Water. So it is an immigrant story, and you can understand why I'm so overly excited to talk to her. But before we get into these interesting conversation with our producer, Nathalia Syam, I just want to remind you also of my own immigrant story. My latest novel titled Last Spring Was Bittersweet, which is a sequel to a book that I published last year under the title Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring. So it's best if you haven't gotten a copy of the copy of book two to get the two, because the thing is, you don't want to read the sequel without reading the prequel. So, yeah, I'm encouraging you, and the book is available everywhere they sell books, including Walmart, Bookshop, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, Amazon.com, everywhere they sell books. Without further ado, so let's get to our wonderful conversation with impeccable movie producer, Nathalia Syam. So let's get started.
It's heavenly there. It's green like a Kerala. There's a lot of flower fields.
Building works. I need 6 men, £30 a day.
There are 4 bedrooms, 17 people.
17 people?
Are you sure this is our accommodation? They showed us pictures of some beautiful houses.
You're going to live in a nice house. You are going to study in the university. It's not only for me.
Marrying a British resident is an illegal immigrant's dream.
Mira!
And my name is Ardain Isma, and I'm here this afternoon or this evening or this morning. It depends of where you are on the planet, with an impeccable film director. I'm here in a very interesting conversation with Nathalia Syam. It's an honor for me to receive her. But just like when I have a guest in a conversation, I always begin by asking the guest, to present himself or herself to the audience. So Nathalia, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome, Ardain. And, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you. To introduce myself, I'm, a London-based filmmaker. I have very strong roots with India. I'm originally from South India, which is called Kerala. And I have a mother tongue of the language Malayalam, which is what we speak. So in our film Footprints on Water, that's currently doing its rounds in the film festival, is my debut feature film. And it stars wonderful stellar cast like Adil Hussain, who I know you've spoken with earlier, Nimisha Sajayan, Antonio Akil, Lena and Danny Sura. It's produced by Mohan Nadar at TPHQ, which is a London-based production house. And ever since we had our world premiere with the New York Indian Film Festival in May, we've been at 12 other film festivals, and we are due to travel a little bit more till the end of the year with some other festivals too. So that's a little introduction about myself. And the film is about the lives of undocumented migrants. So we have the script written by my sister, Nathalia Syam. We are migrants ourselves who moved to the UK. I moved when I was 11 years old. And my sister, she's a little older than me, and she was around 18 when she moved. So the film is basically about what we saw, what we got inspired from our environment. And we were just curious of the undocumented immigrant community. So we started researching further into that, and we just felt that it's a lot more than we see. So hopefully the film encapsulates most of that, but there's a lot we are still yet to touch on it.
Okay, before we get into the main story, just remember pre-show we were talking about. I was just telling you how personal, yeah, I find connection with the story itself because of my background. So before we get to that, let me ask you some technical issues because I have on this show, I have spoken with many film directors. I remember my second episode on the show. It was two very brilliant young ladies from Los Angeles, California, and they had a production company called Poison Pictures. And at the time, we were talking about a film that was just produced by screenwriter who lives in Northern California, Gabrielle Constant, who is a good friend of Rashmi Dash. So we were talking about the painstaking process of putting together a piece of art, which is a movie, a film, a feature film. So let me ask you this question, Nathalia. How painstaking it was for you?
I think because I do like to be as honest and as you know, as transparent as I can be. So you know, like now we're in the year 2023.
Right.
I think Neetha started writing the script around 2016. So we're like 8 years ago almost. And you know, it went through. So you know, whenever people ask me about about my journey or you know how it's been, I always say it's been a long process. Nothing's been fast, you know.
Right.
Nothing's that we thought of a concept and then, because some people are extremely lucky in getting that, that's absolutely fine. But I think for this concept, it was important, you know, it just gave us a little bit extra time to understand our surroundings. And also, this is my debut film. I needed to learn as well. You know, I was an AD before that. So I'd say there were moments where it was extremely painful in the sense of kind of not having clarity on what next is something that's very unsettling with me. But I think over time I've now gotten a bit more used to, you know, taking that and expecting, you know, the best and the worst together. So I think there were moments where it's like, oh, what's gonna happen next? But there were also moments that it's very fast, that it moves really, really fast, you know? So overall, I'd say even now I'm still figuring things out. And, you know, there are still days where I'm gloomy because, you know, something that, you know, I'd planned out is not working in our favor. Or there are days where I'm extremely happy because, you know, we've had a brilliant screening or you know, we're seeing, you know, nice reviews about the film. So all that kind of stuff is there. So I hope that answers your question.
Now, the two things I just wanted to clarify for our audience, were they the auditioning process the hardest or the acting process itself?
You mean in the sense of
you know, getting you know the right people, the right actors? Because I know in my previous conversation with Adele Hussein, which is an established. I'm going to ask you this question about him. How did you manage to lay your hands on him? But before we get to that, I know not every actor who's an established actor. Sometimes the person you pick is a first time, you know, actor, in the sense that this is the first time, you know, people are going to see him or her on the big screen. So usually that process can be very tricky and painful too. So choosing and rejecting, you know, someone.
I mean, we were very lucky to have, you know, quite a few people who were already quite established and doing quite well. Okay. So we reached out to Ardain. So Ardain was shooting for a Bollywood film in London, a Hindi language film. And, you know, I got to find out that he was here. So I messaged our producer Mohan and just sort of asked, like, you know, I'd like to speak with Ardain. Okay. And And then Mohan set us up together for a meeting. Neeta and I went and we pitched the story. And I think from then he was really so amazing, so supportive. And even now, I think he's definitely one of my top favorite humans in the world, because he's just so easy to work with. And I feel like, because of the comfortable environment he sets, you feel very comfortable to tell him exactly what you wish. And, and more than an actor, he kind of, advices about the film, like, especially festivals. And I think that's something that's, very incredibly sweet of him, because I'm sure he's super busy and, he still finds time to do that. And our other actors as well, they all fell into place. But for our lead actors, they were already quite established. So in terms of working with them and directing them, once we had gone through the prep and once we had kind of, strike the balance, it was quite easy to then progress on. But keeping in mind, we had, because, it's a migrant story, there's a lot of various characters we have. So there were, of course, a lot of people who were first-time actors who had never been on set before. So the audition process was very fun. And I think most of the people who auditioned, we did have them as part of some kind of the scene, some part of the film. And I just felt like sometimes it did take a little longer with some people, but certain others just kind of just got it on the spot. And I think, I'm somebody who thinks it's okay to take a little time, though we're, running behind the clock. But it's okay to take a little time, because it means then there is a little bit growth for them too, especially if it's their first experience being on set and understanding how the camera is placed, etc. So, for me, I feel like long story short, I feel it's important that you don't have an actor in mind and then you write the story or you prepare a story, because then that's dangerous, that you're pretty much writing for someone. I feel that you always finish the script and then you're totally detached from it, and then you start casting on who best fits the role. So that way, I think in terms of representation as well, even if it means that somebody's not there, so then you cast somebody new. So that's our process in general.
Let's get to the story itself, Nathalia. Immigrant stories, whether if it's nonfiction or if it's a fictional tale, whether it is being told using motion pictures or novelistic prose, is always something personal to me. As if you were speaking to me, as if you knew my own story. Because I came to the United States as a very young gentleman. I was about 17, 18, where I spoke no English whatsoever. And I came to the United States in a very untraditional way. I was on a boat coming to the United States. It was a shocker to me, probably even worse for you when you arrive in London with your parents. You knew English prior to coming to London, but I didn't know English whatsoever. And all the trials and tribulation that I and my relatives had to go through to get, to somehow capture a little niche in this too often can be very unforgiving, unwelcoming society, I had to do a lot. So your story, Footprints on the Water, in a sense, is my own story. So I read the piece written by Rashmi Dash, brilliantly written, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
He touched my heart. And this is, if I can get this is something, as she say, Nathalia has a special interest in creating films that portray distinct characters and themes from around the world, where audiences can get the essence of different cultures and social situations. So, Nathalia, was that exactly the identical feeling that prompted you to begin to look into a project like this?
Right. So, I mean, I'm so, just talking about Rashmi's writing, I was very impressed with the way she, encapsulated the whole experience. And I thought it was absolutely very well written. And so for us, in the sense of, actually, I wanted to just add that, so when I came to the country, between 10 11, I couldn't speak English. I
Okay.
knew how to read and write it, but I struggled in it, because in India, you're being taught, in Kerala, you were being taught English, Malayalam, and Hindi. So
Mhm.
languages has always been so confusing for me.
Yeah.
And I remember that I used to like fail in Hindi, and I failed in, fail in the sense of not pass my exams in Hindi. And I just used to find languages very complex and very tricky to get. And then here I moved to another country where it's a whole different language. So I remember the first year in my school, I was often put through very difficult situations because I didn't know the language.
Right.
Because everybody knew, and even if it meant that people don't want to be my friends, and because it's not cool enough, and I'm sure
Right,
know
right,
what
right,
I'm talking
right.
about. But I did have a lovely best friend, Lizana. She's from Kosovo, and in Europe, and I remember she just took a great interest in me, and she just really helped teach me the language, and she would talk a lot to me, so I picked it up. And with that, I picked up the accent of West London accent as well. So I remember,
Okay.
when I would talk to people when I talk to people, I find that I'm still not doing the West London accent. I think it's quite neutral right now, but it's like proper kind of, it's totally different to English, isn't it? It's like another different language on its own. So I find that when I came, I really felt very close to the different cultures around us. And because when we moved, I really expected I'm going to see a lot of British people, I'm going to hear a lot of English. But in the town that I stayed, called Southall, it was mostly Asians, South Asians, and they would mostly speak in Punjabi, in Hindi, in Gujarati, in Malayalam. And I would just think, like, is this India? It's a
Little
fun.
India,
And
right?
and you never used to find anyone British, like especially white British, which is what I expected, because I'm so young and I was very
Right.
naive, and I'm thinking it's gonna be, very posh and everything. And I think it took me 2 years to meet somebody, who's
Yeah.
actually British, because I didn't know. And also, from an economical point of view, we were all settling in, and our parents didn't have a great deal of funds to do everything. So we never really went out and about of our town. Maximum we would go to, like, somewhere like going central London, and all was a very huge affair. And I remember during the Footprints interviews, there were people we spoke to in Southall, who's been in Southall for over 20 years, but hasn't been to Big Ben, London Eye area, which is only
Really?
20 minutes away,
Wow.
because they're so comfortable in their cliquey
Our little
crowd,
world.
in their world. That's their world. So I felt like, it's very uncommon that this is such a huge part of London. And then I felt like this, there are so many communities in Birmingham, in Manchester, in Liverpool, in anywhere you can think of. And why aren't people making films about it? So that's something that really drove us. And the one question that between Nita and I we had was, because we had a few family friends who were undocumented migrants, and they would all work for £1 or 2 an hour, which is like a lot less than the minimum wage. So that really confused us. And then we really found out that they're illegal, they're illegally staying in the country, and they're classified as undocumented migrants. So it's like, in this community, even if somebody gets killed or if they die, there's no way for the government to keep track, because they're not part of the system. So then we thought, what would happen if somebody in the community goes missing and her father's out to look for her? So the whole story is about Adil's character, Raghu's character, played by Adil, searching for his missing daughter without coming under the system at all. But then you later in the film show that the system also helps out. So it's kind of things that people may not know about. And it's kind of, showing things like, there are people who watched the film who said, is it definitely shot in England? Because they couldn't believe that this would be England. So this is something that definitely drove us to make the film.
And there are two themes in the story that really capture my attention the most. One is the struggle to survive in the old country, and also the struggle from within. with regard to a sense of abandonment when you have to leave your own country to seek a better life elsewhere, and the unwelcoming situation, that defines all your expectations when you arrive finally in the new country. What was supposed to be the promised land turned out to be an unexpected nightmare. So I see these two things in the story. So that's what I'm saying, that I see that you're telling my own story. It looks like maybe immigrant stories are universal. The situation where he has to find work wherever he could to survive, to keep track of his own daughter, to listen to someone who would give him advice to marry, a British person, so that would guarantee, legal papers. These are stories that you find in every immigrant community. So let me ask you this. You are very, I would say, impeccable storyteller. I understand your sister writes the script, right? But growing up with you and your sister, have you always, the two of you, been storytellers?
So my sister, originally, she was a chartered accountant who ended up leaving that career, and then she got into writing full time.
Okay.
And my background is that I did a year of accounts, kind of following my sister's footsteps, and because I didn't really know what to do then as well. So I did about a year of it, but I quit it quite early, and then I went to film school. And then I did a lot of I worked as a runner and an AD and all that kind of all sorts of jobs in the industry. So I feel like we've always been storytellers in the way from a young age. We would always. I used to have this real interest in acting when I was in high school. So when you're so young and in school, it's like acting is the one creative thing you can do, because your teachers would have all these plays and all these kind of monologues you can do and musicals that they put on show. So I would be part of that. And at one point I thought, okay, you know what? I want to get into acting. I want to be an actress. And at 16, I got casted to do a very small role in a short film. And when I went there, and because this was such an independent film,
Right.
I remember I offered to help the director, making sandwiches for the crew and all that kind of stuff. And when I was doing that, I really got to see what happens behind the camera. And then I thought, wait a minute, this is so cool. I've been doing acting thinking, and not that, I was an actress as such, but I've done a fair share of small bits of things in school and university. So I remember being mind blown that this is something you can create from scratch and you don't have to be on set to be creative. So that's when my passion for it started. And I'd always kept in touch with local film clubs and film groups nearby. And I always thought when I got into accounts that I'm going to do it one day. I'm going to do it in the weekend for now, but I'm going to do it one day. And then after a year of just feeling so unhappy with doing another career, I thought, you know what, why just wait for the weekend to feel happy? Just quit it and I'll do it now. So that's how the whole passion for storytelling came. But it's very important. I think I should also really mention that when you also sometimes have a story that's so strong to tell, that can also help you, because I think for us it was really important that we showed what's around us, what's going on. And I feel movies and films are such a huge powerful tool to do that, as everyone agrees. And we felt that while we have so much that we have seen already, then why not we get into this? So that was the background of how we became storytellers.
Okay, so when you have a dream and you want to transfer, to take that dream to the next level and to making that dream into a reality, we understand that every film production, requires money. So you can't put together, all these actors and all of these impeccable professionals, to bring about such great piece of art without the expenditure. How did you raise money to put together?
So the film, as I mentioned, is produced by Mohan Nader at the production headquarters. So he funded the film, and so it's a production house, and they use their funds to produce this film. So in that light, I didn't. It was like a very organized production who did all that. But before that, in terms of some of my short films, I had to self-fund. And I'll tell you, for people, if anyone's watching, who's aspiring to be a filmmaker,
Okay.
and who's wondering how to do it, what I'd really say is I never used to say no to any jobs that used to come my way. Because sometimes, I worked as a runner, a set cleaner, a set driver, anything. Because if you get a certain amount of minimum wage, that's some money to kind of, keep going. So
Right.
what I do is just really, from these work, whatever I get, I used to put aside and then contribute that towards the short film.
Okay.
Or I would like crowdfund. Sometimes I've even crowdfunded for short films where I would just put it up on Facebook or Instagram. At that time, it was Facebook more. And I would just say, we're making a short film. If anybody wants to, contribute towards our film, please let us know. And it would be like £5 or £10, but it's a little bit of money. But when you're in your starting 8 days, you often find that people are, very kind and supportive too. But sadly, I didn't have any kind of, relatives who gave like thousands of dollars or anything like that. I would just make it like very slowly, like £5, £10, £5, like that.
But also, it would teach you something else also, perseverance, and also the amount of people who show some kind of an interest into what you're trying to put together. So it's very encouraging. Now,
Thank you.
I have a question for you. When was the movie, and where was the movie premiered? Was that in London or in the United States?
It's a very interesting answer. We on the 12th of May 2023, we premiered at the New York Indian Film Festival.
Okay.
And the 13th May, we premiered at the UK Asian Film Festival. So
really, how did you do that? Wow, that was pretty intense schedule.
I really have so much gratitude to, the transportation system that our world currently has, because it just meant that I went for the screening, did the Q&A, got on a cab, went to the airport, ran for the flight, landed in UK. On the way to the screening, got changed very quickly and went to the screening. That was literally what happened. And I kept thinking to myself, for many years, I was just waiting for something. And suddenly something cool happens, and it happens like this.
Exactly. Was your sister with you too?
No, so my sister didn't come for New York because I just felt a little worried in case there's any flight delays or any issues, so that we're completely all away.
Right.
But Adil Hussain was in London, and our production was in London as well. So then, New York, just myself and two of my best friends who came to support me in New York, because it was my first time going out to New York as well. Because, though I've been in London, I've only gone to the Asian side because you usually go to visit family. And somewhere, near Europe is where you ideally go. So it was very exciting for me to, come to North America. And I just want to touch on what you said earlier, how you said you feel the story is your own too. And so we've had a few North American screenings. So in New York, Chicago, South Asian Film Festival, Ottawa, and Atlanta recently, where I met Rashmi, and Cincinnati. And all these audiences, one thing we had in common was everybody has seen someone like this in the US too. So I thought that was incredibly interesting, because when we premiered in India, people couldn't believe that this would happen abroad. When we premiered in London, like in Germany, we were in Germany, we were recently in Norway, and they were all like, we see this all the time. And I just felt like it's such a universal topic, and people, like, especially in North America, people are like moved to tears, and because either they are part of the story or they see someone who's very close to them who's in the story. Exactly. So I just feel like, migration is it's probably the oldest tradition of the world. That people have been migrating since ever. And to think that, we've been doing this for so long, but to still be mistreated, to not have the right information, to really get into trouble where you've given up everything of your own and you've moved over. I think it's extremely sad, and it's extremely touching, you know?
So, and then you came to Atlanta. So was that recently, or was it arranged by some film producers in Atlanta? Or how do you get to be in Atlanta?
So we applied for the film festival, Atlanta Indian Film Festival, and then we got accepted through that, and that's why I got a chance to be part of the festival and see the screening there. I was absolutely impressed by the audience members who came for the show, and also the Q&A was brilliant too, that everybody was very moved and they had a lot of questions. So I absolutely had a great time during the screening of our film. And it was a good networking opportunity too. I met with a lot of people, though it was very short because I just came for that very, you know, the short time the festival was running. But I feel like North America in general, maybe in my past life, I lived there. I don't know. Ever since Footprints have come, people of North America has been really warm and welcoming to our film, which I think is, you know, really special. I think it's one continent where we've had the most screenings of Footprints so far. And even like in December, we're going to be at Washington, D.C. South Asian Film Festival. And it's going to, you know, continue being there. And I just feel like if there's ever an opportunity, I'll definitely come back to the US, because it's such a wonderful place and the people are so lovely. And I think if I looked, you know, deep enough, there would be very similar stories that I can find and draw parallels from.
So what you're saying that so the immigrant fiction genre is not going to stop right here with Footprints. Do you see more immigrant stories, or do you plan on transitioning to more what you call mainstream stories? People would say, which this is a terminology that I don't like, but you know, but do you see yourself, you know, staying within the framework of immigrant fiction stories, or you know, the more traditional ones? And when can we expect another you know, production?
I see. So I feel like, you know, stories about immigration and migrant life is something I know very well. And if there's ever an opportunity to make another you know, immigrant related story, I'll definitely, if I like the script, I'll definitely jump at it. But right now we're sort of, you know, developing a few things. Neetha's writing a couple of things, but we're not exactly you know, it's not that, you know, we will only do migrant stories. For me, I think it's just important that when we tell a story, it should have something that people can take away from the film. I feel like films for entertainment are great, but while films have the power to both entertain and educate and to create some kind of an awareness without kind of, you know, being preachy, I just feel like if an audience can come and they, you know, they spend a couple of hours, 1.5 to 2 hours watching a film, and then they leave, and if the film can leave them wondering with a few thoughts, I think that's probably you know, while we can do that, I think we should, because that's just my style of filmmaking. So long as it's got something that's kind of, you know, grips the audience. I'm very driven by social causes. I'm very driven by you know, representation, unheard voices, untold stories. So hopefully I'll be able to, we're working on something, maybe, I don't know, in a year there might be something that would come out. But right now I'm just enjoying, you know, being there for the film Footprints on Water, being there for the audiences, if anybody has any questions, and talking about the film, because I think, you know, hopefully around Feb, March time, we'll have a release. And so I'm just helping with that. And in the meanwhile, developing a few things too, but definitely I'll be back with a few more films, and hopefully,
and you'll be,
you know,
back in the conversation too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, every time I have a guest in a conversation, there's sometimes we move away from the fictional story or from the story itself, because we're humans. Okay. So I just want to ask you a question now. Besides film, making film, what other thing, Nathalia, you think that would interest you the most as an individual?
Oh, I like that, because, you know, I never usually get asked this question outside of film. So I think what interests me is I love traveling. I've been, traveling as much as I can for almost a decade now.
Wow.
And I take the opportunity to travel whenever possible.
Right.
And I like exploring. I like talking to new people. I love, exchanging conversations, learning more from others, and just trying different type of, wines and cocktails from all around the world, really. So
Right.
I like that. And I absolutely love spending time with my family and my best friends, who are my absolute, rock. And I also spend a lot of time with Neetha because, we're always developing stuff. And apart from that, I like to um, cook. I love making all these
I was going to
fine
answer this
things.
question. Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite cooking at this point?
Well, I feel like cooking is something that really helps me escape the reality, and especially if I'm stressed with something, I focus all my energy on cooking. But I pretty much cook, like I make up recipes. So I find like something I really like and add a few bits of my own, and like a homemade pesto, for example, I might just add a few more nuts. So I would cook anything, but I do enjoy the creative plating side of things, and
Oh, great.
all that kind of. I love feeding people. If anybody wants to eat, always come to mind.
That sounds like just like my wife. She's so embedded into cooking. When someone comes to the house, the first thing she asks, "I'm just gonna make you some bread or some Haitian cuisine."
Oh, that is so sweet. I shall keep this in mind, and next time I'm in Florida, I shall
Oh
come
yeah, when
over.
you're in Jackson, you just come over. She'll make you wonderful, tasty Haitian cuisine.
Oh, fabulous.
Okay, my other question is, how about music?
So I listen to a lot of various types of music. I don't think I have like a favorite style as such, but I enjoy Indian music a lot, especially Hindi songs, some Bengali songs. I like Tamil and Malayalam songs a lot
Okay,
as
okay.
well. Then I listen to. I like classical music. I don't
Okay.
mind. I don't mind. A little bit of jazz. I love kind of some Afro beats as well, R&B, hip hop, anything. I'm just cool with any music as such. But it just all depends. Like, say if I'm working and if I just want to like write something, maybe a little bit of classical music in the background. But if I'm driving, then I'd probably, listen to some kind of, maybe a little bit of hip hop or,
Yeah.
R&B or
Okay.
something.
It depends on
Yeah,
the
so I'm
mood,
quite mixed.
right?
Yeah, with the mood. But I appreciate music. It's one thing I can't do. So when people do it, I'm absolutely in awe that this is great.
Interesting. Now, this question might be a little bit difficult. Now, I know every movie producer, as you, like you know, has some producers that they emulate. So, out of all of them out there, which one you think is your favorite? That not don't give me two, three, or four, just one is your best of all time, hands down.
Is it a film or film producer, you said?
Not film, the
Film,
producer.
film, the
Someone,
producer.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It doesn't have
Let
to
me
be an Indian film producer. It could be.
Any film producer.
Mm,
Um,
I know it's tough.
it's very tough because I actually don't think I know, but what I think I would say, because I think because the dynamics in production changes as per film, and sometimes you could have the most social film, but if the background isn't ethical or vice versa, I don't really know. But I think it's important for a production to be able to support the filmmaker, and for the production to really understand the needs, and like for example, there are quite a few good moments that from my producer that I remember, like we shot amidst COVID. It was extremely tricky to shoot anything, and we were the only people shooting in the UK at one point, and he really went beyond and above and putting everything together. And he was working in different departments and all that. I think for that is a great trait that somebody can do in sort of making sure the film doesn't close while shooting, and it continues. And then in the other hand, I've heard about, a friend's film where the producer was specifically looking for a topic which she didn't have, but the producer felt, I wish I could say the topic because it's very niche, but the producer had a topic in mind, and she was going around to different directors and writers saying, this topic I want to make a film on because nobody's made it, and I think it's important somebody shares it. So then now she's found somebody who is willing to write it. And I think a producer like that should also be applauded, to think that there's no film of such kind, let's make one. And I think in general, anyone who is just, compassionate and understands that it is a tough job to do and just kind of, stand by you and support you through, is probably the dream producer. So I can't give you a name, sadly, but I think a combination of all this is probably what I have as an answer.
Okay. How about your best film of all time?
I think Silver Linings Playbook. I love Silver Linings Playbook. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful film. I really love the performances. And in the very similar space, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. So it's pretty much like, because there's a bit of, mental health and all that. I really am driven by, films with great performances, great storytelling, strong scripts. So I really like these two films. How about you? I'm curious about your favorite film.
It was one produced by Raoul Peck, titled Sometimes in April, which was about the genocide in Rwanda. Answer the question why, but my question right now, who's your favorite actor? Hands down, of all time.
I think my favorite actor, I've actually not thought of it in recent time, but I think I may be a little biased because I've worked with him, but I do think I'll have to say Adil Hussain, because recently I've been watching a lot more of his other films, and because I'd gone through quite a few bits, and I remember before, after Adil was casted, I rewatched a few of his films, and I now very regularly watch Footprints as part of the screenings, and now that I know that he is a very exceptional actor in the sense, for audiences to not move from their chair, it's because he's, with the help of the other wonderful actors and cast, of course, but because the story follows Raghu's character, it's almost as if he takes them into a world and they get stuck in there, because, and only a great actor can do that. And also because now I know him better as a person, I feel an actor who's really down to earth, who has, zero ego by his side, and who just wants to help and do better for the film, is probably the combination of the best actor you can find. So if you were to ask me, I think probably forever I'll say Adil Hussain is definitely my favorite actor. And of course there are brilliant actors around the world, but I just find that Adil's acting is very realistic. He does it with a lot of passion. There's a lot of truth in his performance. So I think that's my answer. Yeah.
Didn't it feature on the Anjwani Ray's movie Life in the Time of Corona? I believe that wasn't he one of the main actors there too? I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
He's such a great actor, so I expected that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get into as we get into the end of our conversation, we could talk forever,
I know.
But since we're getting into the end of the conversation, so you said by next year we should expect another film.
I hope so. We're working towards it. Let's see. Hopefully.
Can you share with the audience at least a little bit about the title? Not
yet?
I
wish I can, but I've just got, because it's so early in development, nothing's sort of solid yet. It's like a little kind of, it's in its like a fetus state right now. I'm not even, able to tell, if it's got blue eyes or green eyes yet. So it's just, very very young, but once anything's sort of solid and announced, we can definitely get back on a conversation, and I can tell you more about the film for sure.
Okay. Now, will your sister continue to work with you? And wow.
So right now the projects that I'm working on, she's writing. So we're continuing to work together. But I think she's also open to the idea that, if there is the, because in the future, if there's an opportunity to work outside also, I think we're definitely open to it. But this specific project we're collaborating on, and she's writing, is very special, and it's looking really sweet. I'm very excited about it. So, and also, like I said earlier, we're not really fast, in the sense of, it's not that we think of an idea, we write the next month and we shoot the next month. A lot of Indian films do that, but we like to take our time and we like to research the topic fully and feel ready and then make the film. Because I think sometimes when you rush a film, you really lose a lot of character that could have benefited the film. So that's
one thing I really like about your story, and people also say that about my stories, it's just like you do not moralize the story. So you just present, a clear picture of the reality at hand. So
Absolutely.
That's why they say great producer, great writers never moralize.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself as the viewer or the reader will draw the conclusion. Because, flawed characters are the most realistic one, because, you see yourself much more closer to that character instead of trying to create a Cornelian hero far removed from the reality of an immigrant, for example. So that's what I like about your story.
Thank you. And also in Footprints, I was very careful in not exaggerating anything or underplaying anything. It's just
that's
as
what
you
I'm
would
saying.
see it. Yeah, as you'd see it. Because I think as a filmmaker, you have some, especially when you're showing real life scenarios, I think you have a little bit of a responsibility in not over dramatizing things. So
Correct.
then people can see it, connect, and next time they're down an alleyway that looked similar to Footprints, they'll think of Footprints, and hopefully that will drive some compassion for people around that area. And and if somebody's moving there, then they will probably know better how to navigate it. So it's I think it's a very hard way of filmmaking, because to capture it as it is also is a little tricky, because then you often usually get the performances to not be over the top or under, or it just everything has to be just right. So that's also a little tricky, but it's a type of filmmaking I absolutely enjoy.
With that wonderful note, I'm just going to say it's been more than a pleasure to receive out of London one of the most brilliant young producers out there, and then driving something that I wholeheartedly like, which is an immigrant story. So it was just a pleasure to have you on the conversation.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ardain. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And, like I said, this is my debut film as a director. And it's been really kind and nice seeing that it's been traveling to different places, and hopefully can get out a little bit more as well. So hopefully I look forward to seeing you next time, and I look forward to watching the interview too. I wish you all the best as always. And I'm always here. So, once a new announcement comes or another film comes, we'll definitely get back in touch in the conversation and talk more.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. That was